The German Air Force, the German-language generic term for Air Force, is the aerial warfare branch of the Bundeswehr, the armed forces of Germany. With a strength of 30,311 men, it is the fourth largest air force within the European Union, after the air forces of the United Kingdom, France and Italy. Although its budget has been significantly reduced since the end of the Cold War in 1989-90, the Luftwaffe is still among the best-equipped air forces of the world. Like the other branches of the Bundeswehr, it is fully integrated into the structures of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The German Air Force was founded in 1956 during the era of the Cold War as the aerial warfare branch of the armed forces of then West Germany. After the reunification of West and East Germany in 1990, it integrated parts of the Air Force of the former German Democratic Republic, which itself had been founded in 1956 as part of the National People's Army. There is no organizational continuity between the current Luftwaffe of the Bundeswehr and the former Luftwaffe of the Wehrmacht founded in 1935, which was completely disbanded in 1945-46 after World War II. The term Luftwaffe that is used for both the historic and the current German Air Force is the German-language generic designation of any air force, thus not establishing a link between the two forces. History. After World War II, German aviation was severely curtailed, and military aviation was completely forbidden after the Luftwaffe of the Third Reich had been disbanded by August 1946 by the Allied Control Commission. This changed in 1955 when West Germany joined NATO, as the Western Allies believed that Germany was needed to counter the increasing military threat posed by the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies. Therefore on January 9, 1956 a new German Air Force called Luftwaffe was founded as a branch of the new Bundeswehr. Many well-known fighter pilots who had fought with the Luftwaffe of the Wehrmacht in World War II joined the new post-war Air Force and underwent refresher training in the USA before returning to West Germany to upgrade on the latest US-supplied hardware. These included Erich Hartmann, Gerhard Bachhorn, Gar 1/4 Nther and Johannes Stinhoff. Stinhoff would eventually become Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, with Rahl as his immediate successor. Another pilot of World War II, Joseph Kammhuber, also made a significant career in the post-war Luftwaffe, retiring in 1962 as Inspector der Luftwaffe. Despite the partial reliance of the new Air Force on soldiers who had served in the Wehrmacht, there was no organizational continuity between the old and the new Luftwaffe. This is in line with the policy of the Bundeswehr on the whole, which does not consider itself a successor of the Wehrmacht and does not follow the traditions of any other previous German military organization. First years, the first volunteers of the Luftwaffe arrived at the Nahe-Paragraph-Ravenisch Air Base in January 1956. The same year, the Luftwaffe was provided with its first aircraft, the US-made Republic F-84 Thunderstreak. At first, the Luftwaffe was divided into two operational commands, one in northern Germany, aligned with the British-led 2nd Allied Tactical Air Force, and the other in southern Germany, aligned with the American-led 4th Allied Tactical Air Force. In 1957, the Luftwaffe took command of the Army Air Defense Troops based in Rendsburg and began the expansion of its own air defense missile capabilities. The first squadron to be declared operational was the 61st Air Transport Squadron at Erding Air Base, followed by the 31st Fighter Bomber Squadron at Bar 1/4 Chell Air Base. In 1958 the Luftwaffe received its first conscripts. In 1959 the Luftwaffe declared the 11th Missile Group in Kaufbeuren armed with MGM-1 Matador surface-to-surface tactical nuclear cruise missiles operational. The same year Jagdgeschwader 71 equipped with North American F-86 fighters became operational at Arlena Hyde Air Base. All aircraft sported a Euro, and continue to sport a Euro the Iron Cross on the fuselage, harking back to the days of World War I, while the national flag of West Germany is displayed on the tail. Cold War. In 1963 the Luftwaffe saw its first major reorganization. The two operational Air Force Group Commands, a Euro Command North and Command South, were both split into two mixed Air Force divisions containing flying and air defense units and one support division. Additionally, a 7th Air Force Division was raised in Schleswig-Holstein containing flying units, missile units, support units and the German Navy's naval aviation and placed under command of Allied forces' Baltic approaches. In 1960 the Luftwaffe received its first Lockheed F-104 Starfighter jets. The Starfighter remained in service for the entire duration of the Cold War, with the last being taken out of service in 1991. The Luftwaffe received a total of 916 Starfighter, 292 of which crashed, resulting in the deaths of 116 pilots. The disastrous service record of the Starfighter led to the Starfighter crisis in 1966 as a reaction to 27 Starfighter crashes with 17 casualties in 1965 alone. The West German public referred to the Starfighter as the Wittweinmacher, Fliegende Sag, Fallfighter and Erbnagel. On August 25, 1966 the German Defense Minister Kaiser von Hassel relieved the Inspector der Luftwaffe Generalleutnant Werner Panitzky, and transferred the Colonel Erich Hartmann, commanding officer of the 71st Fighter Squadron, as both had publicly criticized the acquisition of the Starfighter as a purely political decision. On September 2, 1966 Johannes Stinhoff, with Gar 1 Quarter Nther All as deputy, became the new Inspector der Luftwaffe. Stinhoff and his deputy Gar 1 Quarter Nther All noted that the non-German F-104s proved much safer. The Americans blamed the high loss rate of the Luftwaffe F-104s on the extreme low level and aggressive flying of German pilots rather than any faults in the aircraft. Stinhoff and Rall went to America to learn to fly the Starfighter under Lockheed instruction and noted some specifics in the training, combined with handling capabilities of the aircraft that could cause accidents. Stinhoff and Rall therefore changed the training regimen for the F-104 pilots, and the accident rates fell to those comparable or better than other air forces. They also brought about the high level of training and professionalism seen today throughout the Luftwaffe, and the start of a strategic direction for Luftwaffe pilots to engage in tactical and combat training outside of Germany. However, the F-104 never lived down its reputation as a widow-maker and was replaced by the Luftwaffe with the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II fighter and the Panavia Tornado fighter bomber in many units much earlier than in other national air forces. On Stinhoff's initiative the Luftwaffe opened the German Air Force Command USA Canada in Fort Bliss, where the Luftwaffe trained its missile and air defense troops, as well as pilots received their basic training. At the same time the Luftwaffe opened a tactical training command in Beja, Portugal, where pilots trained close air support missions. Between 1967 and 1970 the Luftwaffe undertook a major reorganization of its forces. The two operational commands were disbanded and the four mixed Air Force divisions were divided into two flying divisions and two air defense divisions. The remainder of the units were divided into functional commands. Air Force Transport Command, with the Air Transport Squadrons, Air Force Operation Command, with the Signal Regiments, the Radar, and the Signals Intelligence Units, Air Force Training Command, with the Schools and Training Regiments, Air Force Support Command, with all logistical, maintenance and repair units, and the Material Office of the Air Force. Over the next decade the Luftwaffe received large amounts of new equipment including in 1968 the first C-160 Transall transport planes, in 1974 the F-4 Phantom II fighter bombers, in 1978 the first Alpha Jet light attack jets and in 1979 the first of 212 Panavia Tornado fighters. The Air Defense Forces began to replace their Nike Hercules missile systems in 1986 with state-of-the-art surface-to-air missile systems. First to arrive was the Mi-104 Patriot system, followed 1 year later by Roland short-range missile system. Nuclear sharing. Germany is participating in NATO's nuclear sharing concept. Nuclear sharing is a concept which involves member countries without nuclear weapons of their own in the planning for the use of nuclear weapons by NATO, and in particular provides for the armed forces of these countries to be involved in delivering these weapons in the event of their use. Soon after its founding the German Air Force began to train with the U.S. 17th Air Force in handling, arming and delivering nuclear weapons. At first the F-104 Starfighter was intended to be used solely as a nuclear delivery platform, armed with nuclear air-to-air and air-to-surface missiles, as well as nuclear bombs. The Tornado was the second plane the Air Force fielded capable of delivering nuclear ammunition, although it was limited to deliver B-61 nuclear bombs. From 1965 through 1970, two surface-to-surface missile wings fielded 16 Pershing I missile systems with nuclear warheads under U.S. Army custody. In 1970, the system was upgraded to Pershing IA with 72 missiles. Although not directly affected by the 1988 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the Luftwaffe unilaterally removed the Pershing IA missiles from its inventory in 1991, and the missiles were destroyed. At the end of the Cold War, more than 100,000 soldiers served in the Luftwaffe. The United States still lends nuclear weapons for hypothetical use by the Luftwaffe under the Nuclear Sharing Agreement. In 2007, 22 B-61 nuclear bombs were still kept in Germany, stored at the Bar-1/4 Air Base for use with Tornado IDS fighter bombers of Jagdbombergeschwader 33. The American nuclear weapons formerly stored at Nahr-Paragraph-Ravenisch Air Base, Ramstein Air Base and Memmingen Air Base were all withdrawn from Germany during the mid- and late 1990s. By international treaties between Germany and the Big Four powers in Europe, East Germany is a nuclear-free zone. The Big Four powers are the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, and France, and with the latter three having no nuclear weapons in Germany anymore. Reunification. After German reunification in October 1990, the aircraft and personnel of the former GDR Air Force, the Luftstreitkreis FTE der NVA, were taken over by the German Air Force. The remnants of the East German Air Force were placed under the newly formed 5. Luftwaffe Division in Strasbourg. In 1993 the division was renamed 3. Luftwaffe Division, moved to Gatow in Berlin, and in 1995 assigned to NATO. Already in 1990 the East German plane markings were replaced by the Air Force Iron Cross, the first time Soviet-built aircraft had served in a NATO Air Force. However, as the Luftstreitkreis FTE der NVA were supplied exclusively with Eastern Bloc-produced aircraft such as the Sukhoi Su-17, MiG-21, MiG-23 and MiG-29 fighters, most of the equipment was not compatible with the West German NATO equipment and therefore taken out of service and sold or given to new members of NATO in Eastern Europe, such as Poland and the Baltic states. An exception to this was the Jagdbombergeschwader 3 Vladimir Komarov in Preußen Air Base. The Jagdbombergeschwader 3 flew brand new MiG-29 fighters. On June 1, 1993 the wing was renamed Jagdgeschwader 73 and on October 1, 1994 completed its move to its new home at Lodz Air Base. The pilots of JG-73 were some of the most experienced MiG-29 pilots in the world. One of their primary duties was to serve as aggressor pilots, training other pilots in dissimilar combat tactics. The United States sent a group of fighter pilots to Germany during the Red October exercise to practice tactics against the aircraft they were most likely to meet in real combat. The MiG-29s of JG-73 were fully integrated into the Luftwaffe's air defense structure and the first Soviet bloc aircraft to be declared operational within NATO. With the introduction of the Eurofighter Typhoon imminent, the decision was taken to withdraw the MiG-29. All German MiG-29, save one, were sold to Poland for the symbolic price of a 1 apiece. On August 9, 2004 the last MiG-29s landed in Poland, where they continued to serve in the 41st Tactical Squadron of the Polish Air Force. The Balkans. The Luftwaffe experienced combat action for first time since World War II during September 1995 in the course of Operation Deliberate Force, when 6 IDS Tornado fighter bombers, equipped with forward-looking infrared devices, and escorted by 8 ECA Tornadoes, supported NATO's artillery missions on positions of the Bosnian Serbs around Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. In March 1999, the Luftwaffe became involved in direct combat role as part of the Kosovo War along with the other NATO powers. This event was noted as significant in the British press, with The Sun running the headline "Luftwaffe and the RAF into battle side by side." The Luftwaffe sent in the fighter bomber Wing 32, equipped with ECR Tornadoes, and this unit flew missions to suppress enemy air defences in and around Kosovo. These fighter bombers were equipped with an electronic countermeasures pod, one AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missile for self-defense, and an AGM-88 HARM air-to-ground missile. The bomber wing flew 2108 hours in 446 sorties, firing 236 HARM missiles at hostile targets. No manned Luftwaffe planes were lost in combat during this campaign. 2000s, in 2005 and 2008, Luftwaffe F-4F Phantom II fighter planes took part in the Baltic air policing operation, and these fighters were supplemented in 2009 by units flying the Typhoon. In 2006, to support military operations in Afghanistan, the Luftwaffe sent over several Panavia Tornado reconnaissance planes from AUFKLA currency Rungishwader 51 Immelmann, stationed in Mazar-i-Sharif, northern Afghanistan. There have also been assorted German Army helicopters flying from the Luftwaffe Air Base in Mazar-i-Sharif. Also, Luftwaffe C-160 Transaul have flown transport plane missions in and around Afghanistan. Since the 1970s, the Luftwaffe of West Germany and later the reunited Germany has actively pursued the construction of European internationally made warplanes such as the Panavia Tornado and the Eurofighter Typhoon introduced in the Luftwaffe in 2006. On January 13, 2004, the Minister of Defense, Peter Struck, announced major changes in the future of the German armed forces. A major part of this announcement was a plan to cut the number of fighter planes from 426 in early 2004, to 265 by 2015. Assuming that the plans to order 180 Typhoons is carried out in full, and all of the F-4 Phantoms are removed from service, this would cut the number of Tornado fighter bombers down to just 85. In the past, the Bundeswehr's Naval Air Wing received 112 Tornado IDS planes. However, during late 2004, the last unit of Bundeswehr Tornadoes was disbanded. All of the maritime combat role was assigned to the Luftwaffe, and one unit of this has had its Tornadoes fighters equipped to carry Cormorant II missiles and American HARM missiles. Structure. The current commander of the German Air Force is Lieutenant General Karl Marr llner. Upon the retirement of Lieutenant General Arndt Janik on April 30, 2012, Marr llner became the 15th Inspector of the Air Force. The Inspector of the Air Force is the Commander of Air Force Command, a body created in 2013 by the merger of the Air Force Office, German Air Staff, and Air Force Forces Command. Similar to the Air Staff of the United States Air Force, the German Air Force Command is a force-providing command, not an operational command. The Air Force Command is tasked with ensuring the combat readiness of the German Air Force combat units, which during operations would either be commanded by a NATO command or the Joint Operations Command of the Bundeswehr. The Air Force Command directly controls three higher commands. The creation of the Air Force Command was part of a reorganization of the Bundeswehr as a whole, announced by Thomas de Maizière in 2011, which also involved the Air Force shrinking to 23,000 soldiers and thus undergoing major restructuring at all levels. In addition to the higher command authorities, the three air divisions, the Air Force Training Command, and Air Force Weapon Systems Command, were disbanded. The three surface-to-air missile units will merge into a single wing in Husum in northern Germany. The wing fields 14 MIM-104 Patriot and 4 Mantis systems. The three air transport wings will be merged into a single wing based at Wunstorf Air Base, which will field 40 A400M Atlas transport planes. The Luftwaffe will field three multi-role Eurofighter wings, each with 2 squadrons for a total of 140 Eurofighter Typhoon. A fighter-bomber wing fielding Panavia Tornado IDS and Panavia Tornado ECR planes remains in service at Bar-1 Air Base. The reconnaissance wing 51 will remain in service and add one drone squadron to its Panavia Tornado IDS squadron. The Air Force Command has three main elements subordinate to it: Air Operations Center, responsible for providing command and control to air operations; Air Force Operational Forces Command, the command for the operational units; Air Force Support Forces Command, the command for the support units; Individual units of the Air Force are either part of the Air Force Operational Forces Command or the Support Forces Command. They only fall under the command of the Air Operations Center when on deployments or attached to EU or NATO organizations. Air Force Operational Forces Command. The main subordinate elements of the Air Force Operational Forces Command are Tactical Air Force Wing 31 Boeilk, Tactical Air Force Group Richthofen, Tactical Air Force Wing 33, Tactical Air Force Wing 51 Immelmann, Tactical Air Force Wing 73 Stinhoff, Tactical Air Force Wing 74, Air Transport Wing 61, Air Transport Wing 62, Air Transport Wing 63, Helicopter Wing 64, Federal Ministry of Defense Transport Wing, Flight Training Center of the Air Force, Holloman AFB, German contribution to Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training, Shepherd AFB, 2nd German Air Force Training Squadron, NAS Pensacola, 3rd German Air Force Training Squadron, Phoenix Goodyear Airport. German Air Force Tactical Training Center in Italy, Center for Electronic Warfare and Weapons Systems, Operational Area 2 in Antibla 1/4 CK, Operational Area 3 in Paragraph-Nwilde, Surface-to-Air Missile Wing 1 Schleswig-Holstein, Air Force Regiment Friesland, Air Force Support Forces Command. The main subordinate elements of the Air Force Support Forces Command are Center for Air and Space Medicine of the Bundeswehr Air Traffic Services Office, Educational Institutions, Air Force Officer School, Air Force Non-Commissioned Officer School, Air Force Training Battalion, Air Force Support Group 1. Weapons System Support Center 1, Weapons System Support Center 2, German contribution to the NATO Programming Center, Technical Training Center of the Air Force, Technical Training Center of the Air Force South, Professional College of the Air Force Band 3 Ma 1/4 NSTER. North American Training Centers. In light of the destroyed infrastructure of West Germany post-Euro World War II, the restrictions on aircraft production placed on Germany and the later restrictive flying zones available for training pilots, the reconstructed Luftwaffe trained most of its pilots tactically away from Germany, mainly in the United States and Canada where most of its aircraft were sourced. During the 1960s and 1970s, a very large number of Luftwaffe jet crashes. The Luftwaffe suffered a 36% crash rate for F-84F Thunderstreaks and an almost 30% loss of F-104 starfighters. Created considerable public demand for moving Luftwaffe combat training centers away from Germany. As a result, the Luftwaffe set up 2 tactical training centers, one, like those of many of the NATO forces, at the Royal Canadian Air Force Base at Goose Bay, and the second in a unique partnership with the United States Air Force at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. Both facilities provide access to large unpopulated areas, where tactical and combat training can take place without danger to large populations. On May 1, 1996, the Luftwaffe established the German Air Force Tactical Training Center in concert with the United States Air Force 20th Fighter Squadron at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, which provides aircrew training in the F-4F Phantom II. The TTC serves as the parent command for 2 German aircrew training squadrons. The F-4 Training Squadron oversees all German F-4 student personnel affairs and provides German instructor pilots to cooperate in the contracted F-4 training program provided by the U.S. Air Force. A second TTC unit, the Tornado Training Squadron, provides academic and tactical flying training, by German Air Force instructors, for German Tornado aircrews. The first contingent of Tornado aircraft arrived at Holloman in March 1996. More than 300 German Air Force personnel are permanently assigned at Holloman to the TTC, the only unit of its kind in the United States. The German Air Force Flying Training Center activated on March 31, 1996, with German Air Force Chief of Staff General Paus and U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff General Michael Ryan present. The Luftwaffe has since stationed up to 800 personnel at Holloman for training exercises, due to limited training space in Europe. In September 2004, the Luftwaffe announced a reduction in its training program by about 20%. By the end of 2006, 650 Luftwaffe personnel and 25 Tornado aircraft were assigned to Holloman. Air bases. In 2013 the Air Force uses 12 air bases, 3 of which host no flying units. Furthermore, the Air Force has a presence at 3 civil airports. Personnel. In 2012, the Air Force had an authorized strength of 44,565 active soldiers and 4,914 reservists. The civil personnel within the Air Force is currently being reduced to 5,950 officials and employees. Most of the civilian employees work in maintenance and the Air Force Fire Department. On September 20, 2011, Defense Minister Thomas de Maizière announced that the Air Force would shrink to 23,000 soldiers. Symbols, emblems and uniform, roundel and serial number. Originally, German Air Force aircraft carried an Iron Cross as an identifying feature on both sides on the rear of the fuselage and a small German flag painted on the vertical stabilizer. Each aircraft also carried a serial number consisting of 2 letters, which identified the service and combat wing, followed by 3 numbers identifying the squadron and the number of the plane within the squadron. This system was changed in 1968. The large Iron Cross and serial numbers have since been replaced on all aircraft by a 4-number registration code separated by an Iron Cross in the middle. The first 2 numbers identify the type of aircraft and the second 2 numbers are sequential for each type. When writing the registration number, the Iron Cross is written as a plus. That is, the Tornado IDs of the Air Force are numbered from 43+01 to 46+22, while the Tornado ECR of the Air Force are numbered from 46+23 to 46+57. The numbers from 30+01 to 33+99 are being used for the Eurofighter. Uniform. The ranks of the Air Force are identical to the ranks of the German Army. The Air Force field dress is the same as the Army field dress. The dress uniform of the Air Force is dark blue with gold-yellow wings as collar patches. As headdress, a dark blue side cap or dark blue peaked cap can be worn. Members of the German Air Force Regiment wear a dark blue beret. Aircraft inventory. Figures are sourced from Flight Global. See also, Glossary of German military terms, Kommando LSKLV, Luftstreitkräfte FTE der NVA, List of military aircraft of Germany, Luftwaffe Museum, Berlin, References, Notes. Selected bibliography. Hundreds of books, magazines and articles have been written about the Luftwaffe. A select few are listed here. Amadio, Jill, Gar 1/4 NTHER A Memoir, 7 Locks Press. ISBN 0-91715533-0-0. Philpott, Brian, History of the German Air Force, Hamelin. ISBN 0-600-50293-7. External links, Luftwaffe official website, Luftwaffe Museum and